All right, welcome to the show today. We are going to talk about negativity, and I'm going to meet you right where you're at with a completely negative brain. So let's just dive right into it. Most of my clients come to me and tell me they have a negative brain, and they're actually reporting it to me. Like maybe they've gone to therapy before, they're working on it through therapy, or they've worked on it in the past, and they're identifying with like, you just don't understand. I have a really negative brain. And first, what I'm going to tell you is, do you even know my personality? Like my personality, like my innate personality from like being a child is just like grumpy. Like I'm like the grumpy bear. Okay. And I know you will not believe me. Like if you see me as a coach, if you see me online, if you listen to the podcast, you'll be like, Cami, you're so positive. No, it's because I have to work so hard because I have a negative brain just like you. And I'll give you an example if I didn't already talk about this in a previous episode. In high school, I was voted moodiest in the morning. It just means like I was such a bitch in the mornings that people didn't want to talk to me and they figured they wanted to give me an award for that. So, still to this day, I'm grouchy. I'm like grouchy about the way people should do things, the way people drive, everybody's too slow. Like I want things a certain way, but I don't want to have to work for them at all. Like my brain is lazy, it is negative, and I'm laughing about it with you because here's why. One of the worst things you can do as a human is to isolate yourself and think that you're some kind of like unique unicorn that has this unique challenge and problem, and you're just so bad and you're just so negative. Because what happens then is like you put yourself in this realm of like being unable to be helped, being unable to change, being unable to shift. And so I joke about my personality because, I'm an Enneagram 8, I'm a challenger. I just kind of like to argue and just be like stubborn for no reason sometimes. Right. So that is an innate part of my personality. But then there's also like some of that comes with your relationship history, right? Like it kind of comes with your environmental, the way you're brought up. And then as you become an adult, and when I say adult, it's like as soon as you decide to start taking responsibility for your life, for your thoughts, for your feelings, for your actions, you can change all of this or you can soften it, right? So, what I've decided about myself is innately, I'm kind of a grouchy person. I can be like, I can tend to lean that way. Now, I'm not just saying that's just one aspect of who I am, but I've also started to accept this about myself. Like, there are those of us who are just a little bit more crotchety, just a little more like we're just really judgmental, right? And usually comes from two places, right? Perfectionism, like we have this idealistic idea of how life should be. We have thoughts about customer service. We think that things should smell good and look pretty all the time. And we want to give people feedback, right, in order to quote unquote help them. So maybe this resonates with you in the way you react with your partner or with coworkers or with your kids. Like I just want you to maybe see some of yourself in this without beating yourself up. So what I'm demonstrating to you is I've learned to love this about me. I'm like, you know what? I think I'm more relatable because I'm more human than maybe some people who are always nice all the time are just so sweet and kind and they're just unbothered. Like I just feel like I've had to work harder to become a positive person. And I say that to say that I want you to know that if you have to work hard at this too, that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with you. Truly, we have negative brains. And I'm going to address a couple of solutions to negativity in brains. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between life coaching and therapy. I think that's always important to touch on it on this call. But there's definitely what I like to think about as 50-50, right? We've got biochemistry, like the chemistry inside of your brain, the neurotransmitters that create your feelings and emotions and your neural networks. And sometimes you might need medication for negativity. So I want to always say that you can't always think yourself out of a solution, right? But I like to think of it as 50-50. So we got 50%. You may need a diagnosis, you may need to go to therapy, a psychologist, and get treatment. And a lot of times, medication is the thing that's going to be the kickstart to get you out. So I'm also going to offer you the other 50%, which is the 50% of our living, waking, breathing life where we are consciously aware of our thoughts and feelings. And then we can consciously choose to shift those thoughts and feelings to become more positive. And I will tell you a couple of ways to do this. But number one, I want you to stop beating yourself up and telling yourself you're so negative. Trust me, I've talked to many a client that's been negative. And trust me when I say I have been the client who has been so negative, who's just like throwing such a pity party, like just like, oh, woe is me. Like, oh, I'm just powerless in this situation. And at the time, like it just felt like that was the truth, right? And so the opportunity here is to challenge what we're thinking, to see where it leads us, to see what results it gets us, and then to truly tap into the choice that you have over your thoughts and feelings, over the way that you feel, and your ability to do something about it. And the other caveat I want to say, and I'll do a whole episode on this at another time, but I also want to say for women, which I coach about 90% women, if you are still menstruating, if you still have a cycle, I highly recommend tracking your cycle because there will be days, right? We're called PMSing, right? It's called that for a reason. There are just days in your hormonal cycle that you feel extremely negative. And on those days, sometimes I just want you to accept it. I don't even want you to try to change it. You just be like, yep, I'm negative for these 4 days. That's okay. And I just ignore my brain during those days. And what's so perfect is today is one of those days. I'm on day 28. Day 28 for me is just Grouchosaurus, super tired, exhausted, judgmental. Like everything feels so hard. I'm like, I have to get out of bed. Oh, I put on clothes, shower. I have to shower. Like, and it feels so dramatic. And then my brain on these days is so good at offering me extremes. Like, it wants me to like leave the country. It wants me to like burn everything down. Like it goes very dramatic very quickly. It's like you should just live in the woods. You should just become a hermit. Right. And I know, and then it also tell me like everybody hates you. Like it'll just give the darkest thoughts imaginable. And so I also think it's important when you just are aware, oh, my hormones are going to be kind of setting me off for a few days out of the month. What are some things that can nourish me? And for today, I came and kind of like vented to my friend a little bit, and then she just helped me get my grouchy goggles off. Like we just had some fun for a little while. And so finding some tools like that and then having somebody to challenge you is what's going to be really important. So what I'm going to address is I have a couple of notes for you on what I call, right? Like a negative brain. I called it grumpy goggles. I thought it was cute. One of the things you can do to help get yourself moving forward out of feeling so negative is kind of joking about it, just kind of being like, I was laying under the red light therapy today, right? Like in like having just had a delicious meal, drinking clean water, and I'm laughing at myself going, being so negative, laying under this like $1,000 red light therapy with my lashes, right? And just being like, everything's so hard. Like, what? And again, this is something for me to say. This is not to say that if we call them first world problems, right? So I think a lot of times we can become overly comforted in our first world, right? Like in the US, UK, Australia, like all the places where a lot of my audience is, we become comfortable. We become a little bit entitled. We become a little bit like we don't have enough, right? So I also want to recognize some of that that's like culturally programmed into us. And it's not to say that you don't have real pain and suffering. It's not to say that you don't have real challenges. But I think it's really, really interesting to just look at your circumstances and look at, okay, is there anything here that I once prayed for? Is there anything here that I really wanted at one time? And just kind of shifting into the miracle of now. And the only reason we're like this, perfectionists, is because we have this like idealistic standard of life. We're very much like, it should be like this, and I should have all of this, and I should be happy all the time. So let's just question that. Right? Like, really, life is 50-50. This is something that is taught at the Life Coach School by Brooke Castillo, and this really, really helped me to say life is 50-50. Half of it's good, half of it's bad. Whether you have a life coach or not, whether you have a therapist or not right now, no matter what, like having somebody to support you doesn't mean that life all of a sudden is going to be 100% easy. So I think it's really important to know, okay, am I in part of the 50% of life that's bad? Or am I prolonging a bad experience by prolonging my thoughts and my story about it. Okay. And that's where we really want to shift into. So I'm going to teach you a couple of therapy methods. And the reason I bring this up is because there is a certain type of crossover in terms of the strategies that we use in coaching. But just to touch on the difference between coaching and therapy, you always want to seek out when you are functioning below baseline. And also when you're seeking out a diagnosis, you're seeking out medication, you're needing help to get through the day to day. You've got something big coming up. You're really challenged with something. And a lot of times you'll go back and you'll look at the future, or you'll look at the past. You will heal the past. You'll talk about things in the past in order to get to baseline. The way that coaching is designed is you want to look forward. So we're looking forward, we're creating goals, we're creating a vision, and we're deciding, okay, this is how you feel right now, but how do you want to feel? Who do you want to be? What do you want your life to become? And so we're future focused, we're looking into the future. But the reason I bring this up too is because I work with a lot of people who've done therapy for some years. They've gotten as far as they can get with therapy. They're ready to move into coaching. So I want you to see how some of these overlap, and this is also going to help you if you're just trying to figure out, like, you found this video today and you're like, what should I do today in order to get the help that I need? Okay. So I'm going to start talking about a couple of different strategies. And one of the main ones to overcome a negative brain and negative thinking is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. And this is a type of psychotherapy that helps individuals manage problems by changing their thoughts and behaviors, focusing on the present, and developing coping skills. So this is really about focusing on the present. And so this is integrating a type of mindfulness. It allows you to see what your thoughts are. So you have this awareness. It's allow you to slow down enough to feel into the feelings, and then to determine, okay, when I think this and then I feel this, what behavior do I take? What action do I take? And then what result do I get? So this is a lot of what we do in coaching, is slowing down enough to see what's going on and then choosing a different frame of reference, a different way to think about it. Okay. And we want to use this in order to get yourself thinking on purpose. So what typically happens with my clients is we'll learn how to do this. We'll learn how to start looking at our thoughts, looking at our feelings. Like, let's say somebody has a negative thought that's like, nobody likes me. That thought will keep presenting itself. And the reason why is because that thought, although it makes us feel bad, it makes us feel anxious or afraid or scared. The action that we take is we hide or we do nothing, right? We don't show up online. We don't reach out. We don't build our business. We don't go on the dating app. Whatever it is, that's the action that ultimately would get you to what you wanted. That thought and that feeling is what gets in the way for you. So what my clients usually think is like, oh, well, the thought came up again. We've been working through this. We've been working through this. Like, the thought came up again. Nobody likes me. Yes, the thought is going to keep coming up because the way the brain works is you've practiced that neural pathway for years. It is now a super highway to that thought. And so now you have awareness. As soon as you have awareness, now we want to attach it to a new thought. We want to challenge the thought. We want to come up with a new and different belief. So cognitive CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, teaches to challenge the thought. What I like to consider thinking of it as is slightly shifting the thought to something you can believe. For example, some people like me. We know that's true. We absolutely know that's true. Maybe one person likes me. If I go there and meet one person, that would be good enough. I'd like to do that. So it's just a subtle shift. And you need the trigger, like the initial trigger is nobody likes me. You need that, and you need the awareness. Then you just need the reframe. That's going to happen over and over again. And what'll happen slowly and subtly is you'll start to recognize, oh, that old thought, it's just like an old dusty thought. It's just like an old dusty thought. It no longer activates me as much. It no longer gets me as triggered. And then you start to think new thoughts as you do this over time. So cognitive behavioral therapy is the first one that I wanted to just give you as a framework. And this is definitely used most often. I often do work with clients. Again, I'm not a doctor. I cannot diagnose or prescribe, but I often do have clients who have a diagnosis. So I say, if you are struggling with anxiety, depression, OCD, bipolar, PTSD, any of those things, you can work through this with a therapist. And then also in coaching, we're focused on your future goals in your business, in your life, in your health, in your relationships. And we're using similar methodologies, but we're always focused on moving forward, and we're not here to diagnose anything. Okay. But what's really important here that I find the difference is when we are doing coaching, we are deciding to tell a new story. So what happens with my clients is when they come to me and they start telling me this whole life story and this happened and this happened and this and you don't understand and this happened, I just say, hey, listen, if this is relevant to your goals, I'll bring it up for you. But I'll say usually what I find is when you keep telling that story, when you keep repeating why you can't do it, well, this is what happened before, and you don't understand, so and so said this to me, right? We give more power to the limiting belief. We give more power to the thought. We give more power to the experience, right? Like the failure or the experience you had of rejection or whatever it was. And what I would rather do is, yes, we hold space for that, right? Because a lot of what we need to do with negative emotion is just be with it. Just be with it. Whether it's shame, guilt, fear, like that thing happened, and I feel that sensation, there is a way to be with your feelings in a completely safe way. You will be okay. And when you open up that capacity to feel those feelings, then the thing that you want to do in the future becomes more clear. You're able to move through it and you're able to take steps forward. So that's the first piece. The second piece I've used and really implemented in my life and taught by amazing coaches in my life is acceptance and commitment therapy. This is known as ACT. And this is psychotherapy that helps individuals develop psychological flexibility by encouraging acceptance of difficult thoughts and feelings and committing to actions aligned with their values. Okay. So, again, this comes back to mindfulness. Okay. So, it's come back to mindfulness. And this can also treat a lot of conditions that are diagnosable: anxiety, depression, chronic pain, substance abuse. So there's a delineation here on, are you like, is your negativity having you go below baseline? And below baseline, you have to decide what that is. But usually it's like, is it affecting your day to day? Are you unable to get up? Are you not being able to take the actions you want to take? Are you not able to get out of bed? Right? Like, these are things that you would want to go to therapy for. But if you're just feeling stuck and you're like, I'm stuck, I've been working on this business, I've been really wanting to start dating again, I've been like stuck in this relationship with my partner of 10 years. If you're just feeling stuck and kind of blah, then that's when we would seek out coaching. But these tools I really love, and I teach my clients this: acceptance, right? Most of us say that we have a negative brain and we judge it. We're like, I have a negative brain. And then on top of that, you judge your negative brain. Versus, of course, you have a negative brain. We are human beings. Human beings have negative brains to keep them safe. And it's funny how it just makes up stories. It'll make up like this all or nothing story, like everybody hates me, nothing matters, it's not going to work, like very dramatic. And so, what we first do is we accept that we're having the thoughts, having the feelings, right? And we have this mindfulness of what's going on, but we don't judge it. We don't go, oh my gosh, I've been through this for so long. I've been working for this so long. What's wrong with me? We don't say that. We just say, this makes sense. It makes sense. I'm going after a big goal. Like, I'm wanting to build a 6-figure business, or I'm wanting to build $1 million business. So of course it makes sense that I'm having imposter syndrome, or I'm feeling confused or overwhelmed. It makes sense. And then the next step is actually being able to be with the thoughts, right? Be with the thoughts without accepting them as true. All thoughts are actually false. It's so interesting. Like, a thought, if you think of it, is just like, what is it really? It's like an energy field. It's like a cloud. Like, you can't grab it, right? But it's interesting, as the thought is in our head, it feels very true. It feels very real. It feels very like tangible. And so I like to start thinking of them as like feathers floating by, right? Like waves on an ocean, like maybe flowers in a field. You can just start observing them as bubbles in the sky, right? When you can start observing it as just something that's happening, it's not necessarily true. This allows you to become present. And when you can become present, then you can actually start asking questions like, how do I want to feel? Right? Who do I want to be? What is important to me? And so the beautiful part of ACT is the values work. I help my clients with this, defining their values. And so when things get really overwhelming, I say, okay, let's pull out your values and let's look at what you've already determined, what you've already decided you're committed to. And let's decide how we want to work through this problem through the lens of your values. And a lot of times I'll have my clients create values, something like discipline on one hand, like they want to be disciplined. But then on the other hand, in order to balance that, they want to have self-compassion. So when we look at a challenge, we might look at it like, is this something that we need to be disciplined about? Or is this something we need to be self-compassionate about? And then you get to interrupt the negative thoughts and negative feelings in order to decide, how do I want to move forward with this? And really what this develops is a deep sense of self-love, of self-acceptance, of being like, I am good enough right now. And from this place of love, I choose to commit to these values. I choose to commit to this action plan because this is who I want to be. This is who I'm becoming. This is the life I want to create. So this is very future focused on your vision. What do you want to create in the next 5 to 10 years? And anytime we're creating a vision, that already taps us up into hope, right? If we're being really negative about something, we're gonna be like, well, it's not possible. I just don't, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter anyway. I guess it's all there is for me. Like we just get in this rut. But when we start to build a vision, wait, what if I could have a loving partner? What if I could have $1 million business? What if things could work out for me? What if I did get that speaking opportunity? It starts to build this energy and excitement. So a lot of times if we are stuck in negativity, I'm noticing that it might just be because we don't have goals set up. We don't have the vision set up. Like what's happened for me time and time again is like I'll achieve everything and then I'm like, well, now what? I have to set up a new vision. Like what do I want to do now? And I've noticed it's not about achieving the thing. So it's not about winning the award, speaking on the stage. I like to look at it like, who do I want to be? How do I want to feel? Who do I want to be impacting? What do I want my day to day to be like? Because a lot of times with high achievers, we go after these big goals and dreams. And then we're kind of like, that's all. That's all there is. I reached all my goals and I'm still not happy. Like we want to be going after the fulfillment, the purpose, the connection. And those might be some good values for you to start off with as you're listening to this, right? And that's going to help you shift out of negativity. And then let's talk about the third one, spiritual psychology, also known as transpersonal psychology. And this is the framework in which my breathwork certification was founded. So I'm trauma informed revelation breathwork facilitator, and it is based on spiritual psychology. And the foundation here is it examines the spiritual and transcendent aspects of human experience and understanding them and how they relate to psychological well being. So it really is a holistic approach that approaches healing and recognizes the interconnectedness of the mind, body, and spirit. And the reason why I really like this one is because I'm also, like I said, a breathwork facilitator. I'm also a Reiki facilitator, but I'm also a certified personal trainer. I came from the health coaching industry. Before I started life coaching, I was health coaching. So there is this integration between the mind, the body, the spirit, and this one collective energy, like this energy that's all around us. And so, a few of the thoughts that I really find useful when it comes to spiritual psychology is you are whole, right? So, a lot of times when we're seeking personal growth, we're trying to fix something. And what I come from is like same thing with ACT, right? It's like this acceptance of I am where I am, this is what it is. It's coming from this place of wholeness, like I am okay. I am enough. And that your soul here is chose to be here, whatever your religious beliefs are, just like believing that potentially your soul was on board with coming here, and that your opportunity is to learn and grow and expand and remember the essence of who you are. And so when you know that like somehow everything is working for your good, right? Like if you have this underlying belief, if you have an underlying belief that somehow God, universe, guides, nature, like whatever it is that you believe in, the energetic field, that somehow this energy, this frequency is working out for you, is teaching you something. You're here for it. You've signed up for it. You have the capacity for it. It becomes less of a struggle because you're not fighting what's happening. And this is really why I chose to get certified in breathwork is because in breathwork, we come up against the discomfort, the story, the feelings in our body, the things that we tell ourselves over and over and over again. We want to stop. We don't want to feel it. It feels too painful. I don't want to do this. And then we come to a breakthrough where we are so courageous to be with whatever is here, to witness it, to hold space for ourselves, to break through that pain and come to the other side of presence. And sometimes it's bliss. Sometimes on this spectrum of this negative, deeply painful experience is bliss. I know for me, every time I was driving to breathwork class and I was being the student, I would just be so grouchy on the way there. And it's kind of like we talk about like your inner demons, right? Like they just sometimes want to be grouchy. And there is an actual biological reason why, and it's because our body gets so used to having those hormones, to having those neurotransmitters. So if you're used to being grumpy, grouchy, feels very comfortable to you, then your body will want to go back there. And it takes work to teach it to chill out, to be calm, to just let things be, to just be flexible, right? But the reason why it's worth it is because what you get on the other side of it. So again, spiritual psychology, you are whole, you are complete. Your soul came here to learn, grow, and remember. And you're thinking about these lessons, like these spiritual lessons through your life. So I always like to look at this as like you being the wise old sage and having the old version of you, or like the future version of you, the 80, 90-year-old version of you, come and give you a little bit of like tough love or gentle love, and think about like how much you will have learned by that point. So here are my takeaways for you having a negative brain. Number one, stop telling yourself that you have a negative brain. Just be like, yes, I'm a human. I have a human brain. My human brain is doing this thing that it loves to do. It's trying to keep me safe. It's trying to keep me small. It's trying to keep me hidden. It's just activating my nervous system in a way to be like, danger, danger. So step one, have the awareness to observe your thoughts without judgment. A great way to do this, brain dump, journal. Right in the morning, there's a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. She has morning pages. It's just brain dump. Whatever's in your head, get it out. Let's just see what's there. Some days it'll be negative, some days it'll be more positive, but you'll start to see, oh, these are some recurring thoughts for me. When I think them, I don't feel great. And then you could start reframing those thoughts. But step number two is acceptance of your current emotion and what is. Acceptance. Now, it doesn't mean that you're just like, well, I guess we're just here now in the land of negativity. But what I find is when you can just accept it, like today is a day where I'm feeling grouchy. Today is a day where I'm feeling low energy. I'm feeling down. I'm okay with that. I can accept it. And I can still also decide to do things that bring me a little bit of fulfillment, a little bit of joy, a little bit of connection, so that you're still like putting yourself in situations to feel better and better and better. So for this, you can accept where you are in your current emotion, but then you could go for a walk. You could drink some water. You could eat an orange. You could have lunch with a friend. You could call a friend. You could get out your computer and like brain dump on the computer, being like, what's going on with me? How am I feeling? Why do I feel this way? And just really like dig into the emotion, right? So accepting what it is, your current emotion, being with it. I also just call this like scheduling an hour for emotions. It can be an hour a week. Go cry in the bathtub, go on a walk, be with your emotions. Step three, determine what you want. What do you want? This could be something very tangible, but another way to look at this is how do you want to feel? So if you just don't know like what I want exactly, ask yourself, how do I want to feel? I want to feel free. I want to feel excited. I want to feel fit. I want to feel energized. I want to feel loved, right? And then you can kind of backtrack and be like, okay, what would make me feel loved? What would make me feel healthy? What would make me feel connected? And then you can start to take baby steps just today with whatever that is, like reading a book, sitting down, lighting a candle, drinking a cup of tea, going on a walk. That is how you can shift simply in a moment by moving your body, by changing your surroundings, by putting on some music, and just shifting ever so slightly. You only need a 1% shift. Number 4, ask yourself, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? So, beingness, I think of this as embodiment. I have been teaching so much. I actually decided to launch this podcast in a season of my life where I have felt so negative. I have not felt this negative for 12 years. Like I got my first life coach about 10, 12 years ago. I started on this whole journey back in 2011, 2012. And I remember being like, I was so negative back then. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm not so negative. And the seasons that I've gone through in these past 3 years has just, I became negative again. And so when I think of that, when I think, who do I want to be? I do not want to be this like pitiful version of me that's like, well, life is over now, I guess. Like it's just pitiful, dramatic, very much like very much wants to argue with every possibility. Like, no, definitely couldn't do that. Just very much like negative Nancy. And so when I notice, I'm like, okay, I can choose to continue to be this negative Nancy. And I really like using this too, like just deciding that there's 2 versions of me. There's like the negative Nancy version. And if you're a Nancy, we love you, okay? Nancy, there's nothing against you. It's just a random name. But I like to think of, who do I want to be in the future? Who do I want to be in the future? Calm, trusting, faithful, like energized, feeling limitless, like just feeling like there's so much possibility, feeling like, yes, you can totally do it, very resilient. And I wanted to be the person that really like goes after things, that takes on a challenge, that falls and gets back up again. And so when I think of that, I'm like, okay, I don't want to be stuck in this like pitiful version of me who keeps telling the same old story and is like, oh, well, you don't understand. This happened, right? Like it's just, it doesn't feel like a good place to be in. Now, I can love and accept that part of me, and I can set that part of me on the porch in a rocking chair to be like a grouchy old lady. But then I move forward with the version of me who I want to be. So this leads us to step number 5. How can I practice being that person today? For me, today, you should have seen the level of gratitude I had upon waking. And that lasted until about 1:30, 2 o'clock today. Like I was just determined to tell this story. I was determined to explain how bad it was. And then I just decided I didn't want to do that. So I did some self-care. I did some red light therapy. I talked with a friend, but my friend also challenged me, right? She didn't just listen to me complain. She challenged me and then started asking me like, what do you like about the situation? What is good about this? And I was like, meh, I don't want to, right? And that's what our brain does when it wants to dig in and stay negative. I just do not want to be the person who continues to stay negative. I'll love myself no matter what, but it is just more fun to view the world in a positive light, to come from possibility, to come from energy. So the way I showed up for you today was I recorded this podcast and I decided to record it on negativity because I'm in it with you today. And I know always when I move forward teaching, when I move forward in embodiment, right? I'm doing the same things that I'm teaching you. I'm not just sitting over here being like, yeah, I'm super positive all the time. Absolutely not. The reason I became a coach is because I was super negative. I'm still super negative. My brain leans negative. It just loves to gripe. It has a lot to say. And when you all see me teaching, you probably don't think that, but it's because I spend so much time like digging in, getting in there, cleaning it out, getting coaching, doing yoga, doing breath work, doing meditation, going on walks, getting my workouts in, making sure my supplements are in. Like it is a full-time job to be a highly functioning human. And the reason I say this is because there's also a full-time job of distraction out there. You have all the things on the internet that are here to help you not be what your soul came here to be. And so we can get caught up in these like quick little hits, right, of dopamine, and they're not the things that fulfill us. So if we go back to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need safety, we need connection, we need housing, food, clothing, shelter. Most of us have this. In the first world country, most of us have this. So now is our opportunity to expand spiritually, to become enlightened, to grow our consciousness, to dig into any healing that's here, to not just let that negative story play on repeat, but to say, like, is this really what I want? Is this really how I want to live? Is this really how I want to wake up every single day and like repeat this pattern? And here's what I also say: you can choose, yes, you can absolutely choose to be like, yep, I'm going to keep thinking this. I'm dug in. It's completely fine. I've done this piece by piece in my life over the past 10 years where I dig in and I'm like, okay, I really want to address this one thing. I'm going to ignore this other part for now. And then that other part comes to the forefront. And right now for me, it's back to the forefront of negativity. It's like, oh, hello, old friend. I see you again. And I think this is simply a side effect of going for it. This is kind of like a potential self-sabotage. It's kind of like a intolerance of success, right? It's kind of like an imposter syndrome if you find yourself going backwards and becoming negative after having some breakthroughs or having some big wins. So I also want you to know, coming back to spiritual psychology, what if this period of negativity was here to teach you something? What if you were here to come through it again, but quicker? What if you're here to come through it and get the lesson and apply it and see that breakthrough 100 times over than you did last time? I just want you to notice, and your brain is super negative, how it wants to get dug in. And the way to start getting out is to ask, who do I want to be? How do I want to feel? And how can I start practicing being that person today? So if this resonated with you, take these tools, start asking yourself these questions, do some journaling on this, and also share this with a friend who can hold you accountable so that you guys aren't just griping and giving negativity towards each other. You are challenging each other's beliefs. And if you're ready, get a life coach. Life coach will help challenge your beliefs every week, and you will not be able to get away with negative thinking. You will not be able to get away with this pity party because you are being called to be something more. Something more simply just means an expanded version of you. Doesn't mean better. It just means an expanded version of you who's like leveled up in the game of life. Like, ooh, isn't this fun? I reached a new level of compassion. I reached a new level of depth of emotion. I reached a new level of holding space for myself. So that's what I want for you to start to see this negativity game as an actual game. Like you can challenge your brain in a fun, playful way. And it's very useful to have that accountability in the form of a coach. So I'll see you next.